Okay, so let's get started. We work on the bottom half, so make sure your crotch is where you want it to be. And then his legs on this guy here are a little bit too heavy in proportion to the size of the arms. Eventually I might even shape them down a little bit. I like skinny guys. So start working away at pointing first of all the knee, and as you can see that's got to be pointed in order to determine the way the foot is. Now the foot can be turned slightly because you've got an ankle in the way that can allow it to turn. So if you did make a mistake, you could have the foot turned a little bit. This guy here is more or less straight on this side, straight down, and so skinny it down on both sides and somewhat on the back. Remember that he's got a good thigh muscle in here, so in order to create that you make a little bit of a notch in the back of his leg here, and then his calf coming down here is going to have some definition. More or less on the front part of the legs it's going to be more or less a straight angle, kind of a flat spot for the knee, and then straight down towards the foot on the other side. So let's work away at that, but just remember to try and keep a calf muscle in the back. I didn't do a very good job on this one here. It is a little bit, maybe see it better there, but this calf muscle should be more prominent, and then tuck it in behind. Okay, I'll work away a bit at that. So as you can see, I've gotten a lot of material removed, and I've created the fat part of the thigh, narrowed it down for the knee, and then tried to leave enough meat on the back side of that. Now I can always narrow down the front of this, and you can see this is still too thick here. On the other side it's basically the same thing, so I've got a tuck in here so that I create the back of the knee, and then started to thin down. The other thing I'll point out here is I like to squeeze in both sides of the knee, because the muscle is wider at the top and then thin here for the knee, and then wider for the calf down below. So if you just simply by skinny making this a little bit thinner in where the knee is, you create that. So just narrow it down through here, so that creates the thickness up here and the thickness down below. Okay, so now we have to start thinking about the foot, because as the muscle comes down on the back and on the front, we've got to get into this area in here to get that transition between the front of the leg or the ankle to where the curvature is in the bottom of the top part of the boot. So can you see that hollow in there? We got to start to create that. So there's a lot of considerations to go on here. First of all, the front of the toe has to come up. Are you going to put cleats on the bottom? If you are, then you have to leave space for that. And you know, it depends on how much detail you want to put into the boot itself. If you go on the internet and look up boots, there's about 1,000 different boots that you can that they use in the professional level now. So, but I'm going to just work on this fella here as if I knew what I was doing, sort of thing. So I'm going to have to remove, you know, that whack of material there to get that, to leave that didn't sound good, to leave the top of the toe. We want to leave the top of the toe, and eventually I'm going to turn up the edge of the front of the foot, but get this curvature in here. This is the critical curvature, and I'll just use a gouge, high-sided gouge, about a number 9, 8 millimeter, and I'll just start shaping that straight across in front of the top of the boot, in front of the leg. So now I've got the shape started in through here, so I can get that transition going up here. Now I can point the shoe and start to skinny it down. I've left the center line on from the leg down to the toe, and now I'm going to have to get rid of some material. And you can see underneath that I've got a lot of material in here that I've got to get rid of. So typically the front of the toe is wide. It's wide here, and then it starts to narrow down at the back. I think some of you have stole the shape of mine by copying it on your paper, which is fine too. I can tell that because there's pencil marks on the edge of my completed one there. Alright, so I'm going to use this number 5 20 millimeter to first of all start to shape the toe, using it upside down, and then using it the other way to come back in to start to shape it and taper it towards the ankle on both sides. Let's look at some general shapes now. You can see that when I get done here, I'm going to have to knock off some of the back of the leg now to come down here for the back of that shoe, and this is going to be naturally narrowed down a little bit more. So then if we flip that over to the other side, I got all this meat in here that I'm going to have to get rid of. So on the bottom you can see how much material I've got to get material out of here and make more of a triangle shape in here in order for these, if these heels are going to come close or even touch, hopefully touch. So I've got to get rid of all this material in here. So that's going to go right up into this section in here. So I'll start to shape that now, and then we'll go for it. So there I've started to create the notch in the leg, and that, or in the foot rather, and that brings it back to the leg, and we'll have to work on the back side eventually to get the separation in there, but that starts to create this toe on his left leg. And it's coffee. So you can see that I've got the notch in here now, and I've got the front part of his right boot shaped. Now I got to get this shaped here so that I can get that transition between between the coming down the ankle and create the toe of the boot. So I got to remove all this piece of wood in here. So I'll use that same number 8 or number 9 8 millimeter to remove that wood straight across there to create that transition. So there it is, hollowed out, and I'm going to address this little notch in there and get that going. So now I can start to look at the ankle on this guy, and you can see where I've got to bring in some wood on the outside here and on the inside in here in order to start to create that ankle shape. Everybody's dropping tools today. I'll do that and then I'll pass it around. So there it is, somewhat skinny down for the ankle there, and the back of it is slightly just give it a bit more rounded shape. The only other thing I want to point out to you on this, if you want to follow the pattern, it doesn't have to be exact, but if you notice in the pattern that this heel is turned up, so in order for that heel to be turned up, we're going to eventually have to take off that, and of course we're going to turn up the toe a little bit as well, but that's kind of down the road a little bit. I'll pass this around. So I've been working away at trying to get the lower legs, like from the knee down, getting that better shape. We got to still maintain the thigh, but I got to get it skinnier. It can't be as wide as the thigh up here because that's a bigger muscle. So you got to get it narrowed down. And it's starting to come there now. So I'm going to work that down and then eventually work it into the foot. Likewise on the other side, you can see where I've started to take some more down, and I'm going to have to take more out of that. Remember, this foot is up, this heel is up, I should say. So you can manipulate this to a certain extent coming up because the back of the heel is here. Just remember that a boot or a heel by a bare heel sticks out further at that part there. So you got to give it a little bit extra material there. So if you had if you see, boy, it's hard to see. So that has to stick out a little bit more, that part right there. And then even in this guy here, that should be tapered in just a little bit more there because the heel does stick out. If you look down at your own foot, you'll see what I mean, that the heel does certainly stick out. Okay? So I'm going to have to round over the end of this heel just here a little bit, just to give it, to make it look as if it's standing out a little bit better. And you can see that there's still maybe too much material in here, but I want to shape the bottom of the foot in here before I commit to removing more wood in here. But way too much thickness going through here. Not as bad here, but still needs some work to taper it down. Once again, the thigh muscle up here should be bigger than the calf muscle here. So that's got to be tapered down. So that would be your homework, and I'll keep chipping away here.